Excellent, wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We are beginning the March 10th Freedom Seder, Terasem Freedom Seder. And just making sure we get a good sound check. Have admitted everybody who is waiting there. And it's a
Hi,
pleasure.
Dave. You got me?
Javen, yep, we hear you there.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep. And welcome, Candace. Welcome, Brian. Maddie. Good to see everybody. Yep. So I'm going to be sharing the screen for the presentation, and really excited because we have a new kind of rendering of the Haggadah for this Seder. And so it's really, fresh script there. And I do welcome everybody's participation in the reading and the parts. So it's not just, me reading all through it. And yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's see. We are recording because last year I forgot to hit start, and that's good. So if there are any questions, just to kind of begin right off the bat, I will also say that traditionally, and it will say in the course of it, that we pause for a meal. Since moving to kind of more the online format, we aren't pausing for the meal, so we'll kind of go right through that. And just kind of keep going. You do not need to have all of the Seder plate items with you. It's very much appreciated that you've taken the time just to participate and to be here. This is being recorded, and the posting will be put to the YouTube. So if you would prefer to keep your mic off or not to talk, that's fine. The main screen should be the presentation, and that you will only come up in the recording if you have your mic and camera on. But I believe that's it for the housekeeping. Feel free to kind of raise your hands or throw something in the chat if you have any questions, or volunteering to kind of read a section in there. So before we begin, any comments, questions? And I'd be happy to do a quick round robin if everyone wants to just kind of, anyone introduce themselves, who they are, whatnot. I'm Gabriel Swamiji, Terasem Movement Transreligion, hosting the gathering here. And Jennifer? Yeah.
Hi, I guess I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Candace Moore, and I'm a graduate student at American University in Washington, D.C. And I'm interning with Orbita and assisting with the charity brands. So right now I'm working on my thesis, which involves sexual minorities and health equity. And then as far as my research background, that includes basic science research, behavioral genetics using CRISPR-Cas9, and also other different factors, including cell cultures and whatnot. I also have some interesting history with NIH and the veteran community. So
Awesome.
thank you for having me.
Thanks. Thanks for joining. Yeah.
Welcome.
So yeah, you're no obligation to speak up or introduce yourself, but if you'd like to, let's take a couple moments now and do that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I do not see you, but I can hear you, Mr.
I can't. I don't know why it's not bringing up my picture, but it isn't. Well, my name is Mike Perry, and I work at Alcor Foundation, which is a cryonics organization in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Welcome. Excellent. Yeah. So again, for those just joining us, we're just doing a quick introduction, if you so choose, before we begin the Seder.
Hello, everyone.
My name is Maddie.
Oh, go ahead, Maddie. It's cool. Oh, sorry, thank you. Yeah, I do live blogging. I'm signing up for Cryonics with Alcor. I'm co-trustee for Stasis Foundation, which is another Cryonics organization. And I worked at OpenAI on the human feedback team, and I'm very concerned with AI existential risk. Nice to meet you all.
Excellent. Thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Yep. Yeah, my name is Derek, and I'm happy to be here. I live in Vietnam, and yeah, happy to celebrate the Seder today.
I can go if you like.
Wonderful. Yes, please.
So my name is Anara Tabir. I live in Germany, and I'm the president of the Multiplanetary Society and the executive director of Gaze in Space. So I work in Hollywood and aerospace, creating a bridge between sci-fi and science. And I'm a lifelong observer and I guess miscreant within transhumanism. So I'm excited to have a pathway that means no death for humanity.
Awesome. Wonderful. Wonderful. All right. Well, then I'm going to share screen and here is our wonderful new deck for the Terasem Haggadah for the Freedom Seder. I really want to extend appreciation to Derek for compiling this, putting it all together. You know, unsolicited, total volunteer project. And I'm just really, you know, I'm shocked and kind of, you know, in all, but, you know, really happy to have it here. So let's see, I should put this into like a slide mode. It is in the PDF. All right. There we go. All right. Got control. There we go. Well, yeah, so I'll back up, you know, for any of those who may be watching this, you know, the recording or are unfamiliar, who is Terasem? Terasem is a collective consciousness dedicated to diversity, unity, and joyful immortality. Terasem is all of us gathered at this table. Terasem means earth seed. We will grow throughout space and time. We will spread joy everywhere. What is a Freedom Seder? What is a Haggadah? Seder is a Hebrew word for order. A Seder is a ceremonial meal that occurs in a set order. Each part of the meal helps us to remember the awfulness of slavery, to appreciate the nature of freedom. It is especially important to share the Seder with children. The Freedom Seder is inspired by a 3,000-year-old Jewish ceremony to commemorate freedom from Egyptian slavery. The Freedom Seder expands on the Jewish tradition. More diverse aspects of freedom are contemplated. The Haggadah is the Hebrew word to tell. A Haggadah is a booklet that tells a story about freedom. The Terasem Haggadah tells a story of many freedoms. Seders are celebrated at homes or gathering places. Terasem centers are meant to host Freedom Seders. Friends and family are always invited. We are here in the Space Coast Ashram hosting this Seder, and we have attendees in the Maryland ashram as well. But anywhere that you are and here with us, you are in Terasem. Any place with the Terasem Seder plate and Haggadah will do. And see that. And as long as you're here with us sharing this and recording our live, you've got the Seder plate, spring vegetables, apples and honey, matzah, haroset, and a paper money. And because he himself did believe in the Thanafi, Benjamin Franklin on the money right there. When is the Seder celebrated? Freedom Seders are celebrated by Terasem on March 10th of each year following a solar year calendar. We start at sundown with the lighting of 2 holiday candles. As we light the holiday candles, be thankful for our togetherness, sing, chant, and be happy. Now that, we've come into a more virtual world, sundown is different any place, everywhere, all over the world. And again, we have people from Vietnam, the United States, Germany, all over the world here. And should be in the drawer. Oh, I zoomed in. Let me undo that. Is that in frame? Yeah, okay, good. Don't worry about Jen. Originally, Passover was a springtime holiday. To honor this memory, let us all now eat a green vegetable dipped in salt water. The new growth vegetable symbolizes our hope that the new freedom springs forth from this Seder. The salt water symbolizes our tears for those who lack even the freedom to celebrate this Seder. Why is the Terasem Haggadah open upward? And I'd love if have a volunteer to read the text that'll come in here.
I'm happy to do it.
Please, Anar.
Why is the Terasem Haggadah opened upward? To open our minds up into the cosmos. There are billions of suns in our galaxy. There are billions of galaxies in our universe. To remind us that thinking upwing is a good alternative to traditional political thinking about freedom, which is usually left-wing or right-wing. To help make the Haggadah different and special, for thousands of years, the Seder meal has been people's favorite holiday. What is better to celebrate than freedom?
True that. Awesome. Yeah. How will this Seder proceed? Would someone like to read?
I'll read.
Amy.
How will this Seder proceed? Glad you asked. A leader will ask participants to take turns in reading passages from the Haggadah. Some songs will be sung to respect the inspiration Terasem received from the Passover tradition. Ceremonial foods will be eaten and a meal will be served during an intermission. We will end with a commitment to help ensure that next year, more people will be more free next year in Terasem.
How it all began. Over 3,000 years ago, a tribe of monotheists from Canaan called the Hebrews were slaves in Egypt. The Hebrews were originally welcomed to Egypt from Canaan as free men because they were related to Joseph, a high advisor to the ruler called a Pharaoh. Joseph was the great-grandson of the first monotheists, Abraham and Sarah. Joseph arrived in Egypt years earlier as a slave because he had been sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. He forgave them and helped them settle in Egypt when Canaan was afflicted with a drought. Egypt avoided the Canaanites' desperation because Joseph interpreted one of the Pharaoh's dreams to warn of the drought and to stockpile grain. Joseph's dream interpretation skills earned his freedom and high position, which he used to ensure Egypt grew ever more wealthy. After Joseph's death, the Egyptians enslaved all the Hebrews. This shows that human memories can be quite short. One reason why we retell the freedom story every year. Filling our cups for the first time. Slaves in ancient Egypt were not even given a day off. The concept of a Sabbath arose from these slaves' freedom. Something good can often be made out of something bad. They also had very little food and water. In gratitude for our Sabbath, our health, our water, our love, and our instinct for justice, let us drink to life, which in Hebrew sounds like Chaim. A freedom leader start. I'd love a volunteer reader.
I read.
Read.
The Hebrews grew so numerous, the Egyptians began to fear them. Pharaoh ordered firstborn Hebrew sons killed as a population control. A Hebrew baby, Moses, was floated down the Nile in the hope he might be saved by an Egyptian family. The Pharaoh's daughter saw him floating and raised him as her own. Moses learned of his ancestry and empathized with the Hebrews. One day he lost his temper and killed a slave driver for whipping an old Hebrew man who was too weak to work further. Moses escaped to the desert and lived a good life as a shepherd. His conscience urged him to return to demand freedom for the Hebrew slaves. He bravely approached the mighty Pharaoh in the clothing of a simple shepherd. Do you want me to keep going?
You or as if someone else wants to hop in, but yes, someone for Moses's persistence.
I'll keep going. The Pharaoh laughed at Moses and excuse me, and refused to heed his pleas. Why would the most powerful man in the world give up a huge economic benefit? Moses predicted many plagues would befall Egypt if it failed to free the slaves. Societies built on the rotten foundations of injustice invariably crumble down. The Pharaoh didn't believe Moses. The predicted plagues of illness and disease occurred. To empathize with even the Egyptian sorrows, we diminish our cups for each of the modern plagues. Do I have to turn the page?
No. I've got it. I've got it. Yeah. That's fine.
Empathy with all sufferers.
Thank you. I got this because there's a
Okay, great.
little task here. Thank you so much, Amy. Yeah.
Sure.
And appreciate that, Candace, too. I realize I mixed up your voices there earlier. A full cup symbolizes full joy. Take one drop out for each of these 10 modern plagues. Thirst, homelessness, loneliness, poverty, illness, ignorance, bigotry, injustice, violence, starvation. We fill our glasses a second time. This time we fill our glass in gratitude for all those who made our freedom possible. Give thanks for the gift of billions of souls and share gladly with others your lifeline. Even the suffering of our enemies needs to be respected. Their pain is our pain, for we are all part of the same Terasem consciousness. Most who suffer are innocent victims of happenstance or manipulation. Let us all work toward the day when there is no pain and suffering for anyone. L'chaim, to life. Drink up. Pharaoh relents. Eventually, Moses wore down the resistance of the Pharaoh, who ordered the Hebrews out of Egypt and into the empty desert. The Pharaoh's conscience, touched by Moses's communication, connected the disasters of Egypt to slavery. A lone protester got the most powerful man in the world to give up one of the pillars of his economy. This is remarkable, and we must never forget it. The Hebrews crossed the Red Sea during a rare low tide. Later, the Pharaoh changed his mind and tried to capture the Hebrews, but by then the Red Sea was back at high tide and the Hebrews were gone. This teaches us two lessons. One, that fortune favors the bold. We must make our own good luck. Two, you won't fail if you don't give up. The price of freedom. Would anyone like to read?
Yeah, I'd like to read this one.
Thank you, Derek. Oops.
In the desert, the Hebrews lacked food. We each now eat some matzah to remind us of the cheap, fast, flat bread they ate in the desert. The matzah also reminds us that freedom requires sacrifice and change. Matzah doesn't taste that good, but it was a necessary sacrifice and change for freedom. We have 4 matzahs on the Seder plate for the 4 epochs of sacrifice change that we'll discuss tonight. 1, slavery, self responsibility. 2, racism, integration. 3, extinction, cosmic dispersion. And 4, illness, joyful immortality. What sacrifices are entailed in number 1, breaking away from someone else taking care of you. Number 2, not making decisions based on skin tone. Number 3, living in space and or cyber conscious. Number 4, not accepting illness determined lifespans.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm eating the matzah. Very warm, very bland. But I was in a hurry. I'm gonna need another reader because I'm chewing the matzah.
I'll read. With each new freedom comes new responsibilities. Without Egyptian technology, the Hebrews didn't know where to go. Without organized society, the Hebrews had no laws to guide them. They wandered periodically. Moses crafted 10 commandments to ethically and practically guide the newly freed Hebrew society. We each now dip an apple in honey to remind us of the sweetness of freedom depends upon organizing ourselves with just laws. Order is a necessary, although not sufficient basis for progress. Sensible lawmaking is the responsibility of a free people. Cooperation is the responsibility of a diverse society. Geoethics is the responsibility of a technologically advanced society.
The apple and honey. You get to eat it for reading.
Oh, thank you.
Every Seder asks 4 questions. The following questions are asked or sung by the youngest capable child or adult. And let's see.
Who's the youngest?
Well,
Not me.
we don't have any children present, but
Probably you.
yeah, I would say, well, Ruben was the last to join, and so I think he should read them.
Every Seder asks 4 questions. The following questions are asked or sung by the youngest capable child or adult. Why is night different from all other nights? Why on this night do we fill our glasses 4 times? Why on this night do we dip our food twice? And why on this night do we eat as comfortably as we can be?
For answers. This is the night we devote to celebrating freedom and remembering slavery. We fill our glasses 4 times to give thanks for a day of no work, the Sabbath, which slaves never had, to all those who made our freedom possible, the miracles of communications, which makes global consciousness possible, the possibility of an infinite future of joy and happiness. We dip twice to balance the sweetness of freedom with the sadness of slavery. We add our most relaxed as a sign of our utmost freedom. Welcome, Elijah. We now fill a glass in the center of the table and leave it untouched in Elijah's cup. Jewish legend tells of a time when a prophet, it's fine. Well, we got to use our own. Yeah. Jewish legend tells of a time when prophet will come to usher in freedom and justice for all. If he just sips from the cup, the time is not right. If the cup is empty, the time has come. Within Terasem, we believe we must take self-responsibility for freedom and justice. To evidence our belief, we now open the front door to welcome Elijah as a symbol of our own readiness to take personal responsibility for positive change.
Open the door. Calvin, don't get out. Come here. Come here.
Strangers that appear are also welcome to respectfully join our Seder. And they ask you to sing together. So if you are familiar, Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Hatishbi, Eliyahu, Eliyahu, Eliyahu Hagiladi. Slavery and the fight for freedom continue, and I would like to see a volunteer reader.
Okay, I can read. Slavery and the fight for freedom continue. The freedom of the Hebrews didn't end slavery for other peoples, but the idea of freedom was born, enshrined in the Bible. The idea of freedom inspires us to this day as a meme or shared thought concept. Until very recently, slavery was an accepted part of human society. When the United States was formed, most people in the world were in some form of slavery, more or less strict. Even today, slavery persists in some places, and its bad effects, like racism, exist everywhere.
Thank you for that. Slavery and the fight for freedom continue. For hundreds of years, millions of Africans were trapped in a particularly vicious form of slavery. European merchants traded alcohol, guns, and other manufactured goods to African traders for African slaves. The European merchants, through their contracted ship captains, then sold the slaves to North and South American planters and purchased agricultural products grown by the slaves from them. Back in Europe, the agricultural products were sold at a high profit to be refined into other products. Sugar first came to Europe this way, and most Europeans became addicted to it. Sugar was also distilled into rum. The concept of human rights was unknown. And volunteer?
I'll go again if no one else is going.
That's great.
The concept of human rights was unknown. Huge fortunes were made off of African-American slavery. Caribbean planters were the technology entrepreneurs of their day. Slave ship captains were admired. Yet those who made the money found they had brutalized their own souls. They lived in constant fear. Many of them died awful deaths from vengeful slaves and diseases. Their legacy poisons relationships among their descendants 400 years after the slave trade began. African American slavery teaches us that no amount of money is worth the degradation of the human spirit. The paper money on the Seder plate symbolizes this lesson. As you pass it around, tear pieces in two.
Thank you. All right, so I've got the Seder money here. And we said we got the Benjamins. Right. Remembering African American slavery. We must remember the horrors of African American slavery, or else our ancestors will have died a second time. Their beingness, or beings, lives on in our recounting their story. Those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. On slave ships, women were routinely raped. Slaves were made to lay like sardines in their own excrement for days on end. Meanwhile, in the small ships rocked in the rough waters, the air below the deck was suffocating. Slave ships were true man-made hellholes. The cruelty inflicted upon the African slaves was unprecedented. Slaves were dehumanized to minimize moral qualms. Slaves were terrorized to facilitate their control. About one slave ship a day left European ports for Africa and the Americas for well over 100 years. The ships rarely left Africa without a chock-full load of slaves. Rarely did any of the slaves on board know each other. Most didn't even speak the same language, as they came from throughout a large part of Africa. Even being on the ocean, which most had never seen, must have been terribly frightening. Treasure our freedom for what our ancestors suffered. Anyone like to read?
Right. Conditions were so bad in the West Indies and Brazil that the slave population couldn't maintain its size without new slave purchases. Newly purchased slaves were branded like animals with their owner's trademark or initials. Some planters just killed any old or infirm slaves to operate more efficiently. In the United States, families were torn apart to meet the demand for slaves on distant plantations. Slaveholders disregarded the anguish of a mother being separated from her children. Slaves shrieked with fear at never seeing their loved ones again.
Thank you, thank you. The first nail in slavery's coffin came from Clarkson. From age 26, Clarkson led efforts to get England to ban the global slave trade. His 16-hour-a-day campaign against slavery would take him by horseback on a 35,000-mile odyssey from waterfront pubs to an audience with an emperor, from the decks of Navy ships to parliamentary hearing rooms. More than once, people would threaten to kill him, and on a Liverpool pier in the midst of a storm, a group of slave ship officers would nearly succeed. His effort, wrote Alexis de Tocqueville, was absolutely without precedent. If you pore over the histories of all peoples, I doubt you will find anything more extraordinary. What made Clarkson's grassroots efforts so amazing? At the end of the 18th century, well over 3/4 of all people alive were in bondage of one kind or another. Not the captivity of striped prison uniforms, but of various systems of slavery or serfdom. The age was a high point in the trade in which close to 80,000 chained and shackled Africans were loaded onto slave ships each year. In parts of the Americas, slaves far outnumbered free persons. The same was true in parts of Africa, and it was from these slaves that African chiefs and slave dealers drew most of the men and women they sold. In India and other parts of Asia, tens of millions of farm workers were in outright slavery, and others were peasants in debt bondage as harsh as any slave was bound to a plantation. In Russia, the majority of the population were serfs, often bought, sold, whipped, or sent to the army at the will of their owners. And a volunteer reader for this: no evil is too entrenched to be changed by determination.
I'll read. No evil is too entrenched to be changed by determination. The world of bondage seemed all the more normal then, because anyone looking back in time would have seen little but other slave systems. The sacred text of most major religions took slavery for granted. Slavery had existed before money or a written law. So rapidly were slaves worked to death, above all on the brutal sugar plantations of the Caribbean, that between 1660 and 1807, ships brought well over 3 times as many Africans across the ocean as they did Europeans. The Atlantic was a conveyor belt to early death in the fields of an immense swath of plantations that stretched from Baltimore to Rio de Janeiro and beyond. Looking back today, what is even more astonishing than the pervasiveness of slavery is the late 1700s, is how swiftly it died. By the end of the following century, slavery, at least on paper, was outlawed almost everywhere. The anti-slavery movement had achieved its goal in little more than one lifetime. To celebrate this achievement, let us eat matzah a second time, but now loaded high with horsset to symbolize the fruit of our ancestors, determination to replace oppression with freedom. Victory over slavery tastes sweet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. And here it is, your matzah laden with charoset in here. Oh. Give us a spree. Well, while I'm eating this, if someone could continue.
Okay,
Well,
I can read again.
I could do it, I guess, couldn't I?
Oh, go ahead.
Or did somebody else want to?
You got it, Mike.
I'll try. Olada Equiano was essential to the birth and growth of the anti-slavery movement. Olada was captured in Africa as a child and raised in the Caribbean as a slave. He managed to save enough money to buy his freedom twice and retire to England to write the first best-selling book against slavery. On the most trifling occasions, slaves are loaded with chains. The iron muzzle and thumb screws are applied for the slightest faults. I have seen a Negro beaten till some of his bones were broken for only letting a pot boil over. When the slave master chose to punish the slave women, they make the husbands flog their own wives. Is it surprising that usage like this should make them seek a refuge in death from those evils which render their lives intolerable?
Intense. Olada used logic to turn the British public against the slave trade. I will not suppose that the dealers in slaves are born worse than other men. No, it is the fatality of this mistaken avarice that it corrupts the milk of human kindness and turns it into gall. And had the pursuits of those men been different, they might have been as generous, as tenderhearted, and just as they are unfeeling, rapacious, and cruel. Surely this traffic cannot be good, which spreads like a pestilence and taints what it touches. When you make men slaves, you deprive them of half their virtue. You set them in your own conduct an example of fraud, rapine, and cruelty, and compel them to live with you in a state of war. Alada died a wealthy man, leaving an estate worth $100,000, all earned from multiple editions of his self-published book. He also invented the book tour. Persistent, informed communicators overturned the age-old, all-powerful slavery system. Slaves had rebelled throughout history, but the campaign in England was the first time in a large number of people outraged and stayed outraged for years over someone else's rights. For 50 years, activists in England worked to end slavery in the British Empire, and their success meant a huge loss to the imperial economy. The abolitionists succeeded because they mastered one challenge that still faces anyone who cares about justice. Drawing connections between the near and the distant, the abolitionists' first job was to make Britons understand what lay behind the sugar they ate, the tobacco they smoked, the coffee they drank. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Now we fill our glasses. Third time. This time we drink in honor of modern communications, technology, books, discs, films, phones, computers, sats. These technologies are paving the way for Terasem by linking our consciousness together. Alada was able to get inside the consciousness of entire populations through the power of his book and his book tour. Mass communications was an essential tool in eradicating first the slave trade, then slavery itself, and most recently, legal racism. We must now employ telecom strategies to battle covert racism and other forms of oppression. Raise your glasses and the life of connected minds. L'chaim. We never really hear it called this, but in effect, what Alada did was utilize propaganda, which was a technique, just hardly created, before his lifetime. Frederick Douglass did to slavery what Alada and Clarkson did to the slave trade. Douglass, born a slave, self-educated himself, started a newspaper and became America's leading voice for freedom, an abolitionist. He used poignant examples of hypocrisy to persuade millions of the need for ending slavery. The mass of professed Christians in America strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. They would be shocked at the proposition of fellowship of a sheep stealer, and at the same time, they hug to their communion a man stealer. They profess to love God whom they have not seen, whilst they hate their brother whom they have seen. They pay money to put Bibles on the other side of the globe, while they despise and totally neglect the men who build their own country. A volunteer to a volunteer?
Okay, even as racial slavery ended, the enslavement of women continued. Look at me, look at my arm. I have plucked and planted and gathered into barns, and now man could have me. And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man. When I could get it, and bear the lash as well. And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children and seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me. And ain't I a woman? Then that little man in black there, he says, women can't have as much rights as men, because Christ wasn't a woman. Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman. Man had nothing to do with him. If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. Now, all Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say. Cleveland, Ohio, 1851.
Ain't I a woman? All right. And so enjoy the meal. So thank you, Ruben. This is the ceremonial time where during the Seder, you would pause and enjoy the meal and then come back for the conclusion of the Seder. But in this format, since we are around the world and not around a table to stop and share the meal, we will stop and share this awesome artwork. You know, this is like, I imagine like a stratospheric, you know, kind of colony, and you're, you know, kind of sitting in the bay window, looking out over this beautiful landscape. Pretty neat, pretty neat. All right. On the Terasem Day of Freedom, we look forward to the day when nanotechnology will enable us to create any food we want simply through intelligent automated assembly of atoms. And then we're going to continue to with the conclusion of the Seder. During the first part of the Seder, we gave thanks for freedom's greatest past victory, our freedom from slavery. Now we give thought to our next victories, freedom from many other kinds of oppression. Each freedom earned provides a platform for achieving yet greater freedom. Each responsibility achieved gives us the capability to exercise yet greater responsibilities. Ultimately, we can be free of random forces of chaos only by taking responsibility for the very universe. This is the path of freedom. And a volunteer reader? Oop. Who among us will be like Moses and demand freedom from thirst, homelessness, hunger? Who among us will be like Clarkson and get others to feel the pain of illness and poverty? Who among us will be like Douglas and demand an end to loneliness, ignorance, and violence? Who among us will be like Sojourner Truth and help free us from bigotry and injustice? We must always remember the freedom we enjoy today were considered by almost everyone to be impossible to achieve, and millions died and continue to die due to that failure of belief. The Native American genocide, centuries of African American slave deaths and tortured souls, 6 million Jews in the Holocaust, millions in African ethnic cleansings, millions in Asian political killings, 200,000 a day to illness today. The greatest part of our freedoms were achieved by persistent, persuasive communications. Freedoms were won quickly compared to how long we were oppressed. The spark of freedom is always to dream it can be achieved. Let's take a minute of meditation to remember the millions of stolen lives. I have a dream. We have come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all people would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note insofar as her citizens of color are concerned. Instead of honoring this sacred obligation, America has given the Negro people a bad check, a check which has come back marked insufficient funds. But we refuse to believe that the bank of justice is bankrupt. We refuse to believe that there are insufficient funds in the great vaults of opportunity of this nation. Freedom starts with a dream and is fueled with persuasion. So we've come here to cast this check, a check that will give up upon demand the riches of freedom and the security of justice. We have also come to this hallowed spot to remind America of the fierce urgency of now. This is no time to engage in the luxury of cooling off or to take the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Now is the time to rise from the desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from quicksand of racial justice to the solid rock of brotherhood. I say to you today, my friends, that in the spirit, in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. If America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom ring from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom ring from the snow-capped Rockies of Colorado. Let freedom ring from the curvaceous peaks of California. But not only that, let freedom ring from the Stone Mountain of Georgia. Let freedom ring from every hill and molehill of Mississippi, from every mountainside, let freedom ring. When we let freedom ring, when we let it ring from every state and every city, we'll be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, people of every color and hue, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. And please, everybody, read with me. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Free at last.
So this is a traditional Seder song that was altered for a second refrain to include a stanza for modern times. When Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people go. Go down, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. When the African slave trade began, let my people be. Oppressed so hard they could not stand. Let my people be. Go down, way down in racist lands. Tell old Jim Crow, let my people be. Thus said the Lord, both Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your people dead. Let my people go. I have a dream that, oh yeah, but refrain. Yeah. Way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. I have a dream, bold Martin said, let my people be. If not, your greatness will be dead. Let my people be. Go down, way down in racist lands. Tell old Jim Crow, let my people be. As Israel stood by the waterside, let my people go. By God's command, it did divide. Let my people go. Go down, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. As millions march side by side, let my people be. By civil rights they must abide. Let my people
People
be.
be.
Go down, way down, way down. Lands, tell old Jim Crow. Let my people be. Give us free. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Nice job, Gabriel. Good job.
Yay.
Excellent. Yeah, appreciate that.
With a little
all
help
right.
from your friends.
Yes, with a little help. Get by with a little help from our friends. I love these. I just love this illustration. You know, this reminds me so much, you know, if everyone's familiar, you know, the High Frontier, Gerard K. O'Neill, one of the publications, the publication of that I was most familiar with in paperback, had a picture of a similar little family playing on a beach in an L5 colony. And like, you just see the scale of it. And I remember just as a little kid, just fascinated with that image. And this image reminds me so much of it, watching this family, you know, in this spacescape out there. So can you dream that? Si se puede. Oop. One day people will wake up to the existential dangers of living on Earth and will develop defenses, including to start moving off the planet. One day, geoethical nanotechnology provides everyone with enough food, water, shelter, and opportunity to pursue their interests. One day, personal cyber consciousness and bio-nanotechnology lets everyone achieve true security from illness and catastrophe. One day, the right to life and to a good life is accorded to whatever values that right, regardless of their skin tone, species, or substrate. Let us fill our glasses for the fourth and final time in this ceremony.
Oh, I love that illustration.
It is love. Yep. And so for the fourth and final time, we fill our glasses, we cherish I am to life and joyful immortality. And next year in a Terasem ashram for the convocation. Excellent. So yes, super appreciate everyone for being here throughout that.
Beautiful.
Theodore Herzl. Yeah, I would love a volunteer reader to hop in on this section. Yeah,
I will.
thank you.
Theodore Herzl wrote, "If you will it, it is no dream." He was referring to the recreation of Israel 2,000 years after its dismemberment. He was right. The traditional Passover Seder ended with the pledge, next year in Jerusalem, Israel's capital. It was a shorthand way of saying, next year we will be free to celebrate in the land where we first lived as free people. Today we can say, next year in Terasem. It is another way of saying, next year we may be closer to the ultimate collective consciousness that will give diversity, unity, and joyful immortality for all. Everyone, please raise your glasses for the fourth time and join with me. Just as freedom from slavery was achieved, so will our other dreams be achieved. Let us work to do away with all forms of oppression. Let us rejoice next year in Terasem.
Cheers to that. Thank you, Jacob, so much for that. There's a Hebrew word saying, for all this alone, we should be grateful. And that Ilu hotzi anu mi Mitzrayim hotzi mi Ritayim dayenu dayenu Ilu natan lanu eta Shabbat dayenu Dayenu, 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 Ilu Natan Natan Lanu, Natan Lano Etatora, Natan Lano Etatoro, Daye, Unidata, Dayenu, 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 Ilu Natan Natan Lanu, Natan Lano Eta IT, Natan Lano Eta IT, Daye, Dayenu, Dayenu, Dayenu. Yep. So normally I would dance for that one, but
Next year.
Yeah.
Next
next, yeah.
I'm going to practice before the next sing along. It's like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's the benefit. These will be for posterity. Well, so thank you for joining us again. Just another beautiful rendition in here. And really, I mean, there's nothing of more more spiritual value than time, right? I mean, money has no spiritual value. Time is the only thing that has true spiritual value. And all of you chose to spend it here to engage in this ritual. And for that, I am eternally grateful. And thank you so much for being here. So with that, that is the end of the Seder. And once again, I wanted the huge hats off to Derek for taking the time and effort to compile an entire, to use Midjourney, create that, the artwork for that, you know, and present that for us, you know, out of his own time and effort. Just a beautiful thought. All of you for being here. And for listening. So that concludes the ritual. You know, I'm going to stick around a little bit, you know, open for, you know, conversation, discussion for anyone who chooses to stay, but, you know, appreciate you just for being here. So thank you again. I am you, you am I, we are one.
Yay.
Yay.
I will
Gabriel.
I will end the recording, but I will keep the Zoom open.